I've been very, very lucky. I've actually been dead. I had a massive heart attack, and it actually killed me. And they revived me with those paddles that you see on TV and in ER and those programs. And I said to Lynn, I need to go to the hospital. And she said, well, I'll get changed and we'll go. And I said, no, I need to go now. So we got into the car, went down the street to the hospital, and they put me on a gurney. Lynn went to park the car, and they hooked me up with the EKG thing, and just then I died. And it was funny. I've always heard about the white light and all those things when you die, but I fell asleep. And I started to dream. I don't know what I dreamed about. I never remember, but it was something pleasant anyway. And the next thing I know, there's doctors and nurses with their faces in my face saying, "Wake up, Bernie, wake up!" And fortunately, I did. And just then Lynn came in. She went to sign me in, and they said, you better go in there. They did an operation on my heart, open heart operation. It took 9.5, 10 hours on the heart-lung machine and all those things. And the surgeon worked on me all that time. He must have had tremendous stamina. But so they never expected me to live through the night. But I did, obviously. The thing that brought me through, I believe, was willpower, both on my part and on Lynn's part. And I have in the book here a chapter on don't give up. And I really believe in that you should not give up. Don't ever give up. The left ventricle, the main pumping chamber of my heart, was severely damaged because it hadn't had blood for a long time. And my heart was hardly pumping. And they tried every conventional treatment to try to get better circulation, and it didn't work. We went up to Shands to be evaluated for a heart transplant. And at Shands, they turned me down. They said I was too old. I was 68 at the time. And they said, by the time we found your heart, you'd be 70 years old. And if you're 70 years old, we can't give you a heart because you're too old. So we had run out of options. And I'm a research scientist. I worked at what was on the Martin Company, now it's Lockheed Martin. In the research division for many years. I decided that I had to take the case into my own hands. I had to manage my own case, and I started doing research on alternative treatments that might be possible. And I got on the internet. I've spent hours and hours and days, and I finally tracked down a program up in Boston where they were taking adult stem cells from people's bloodstream, actually from the bone marrow, and injecting it into the heart. And the blood cells actually rebuilt new blood vessels within the heart muscle and new heart muscle. And I am now, as you can see, I'm normal. A year ago, I was in a wheelchair most of the time. I slept 20 hours a day. I was up for about 4 hours and then back to bed. And so strangely, this was done in St. Elizabeth's Medical Center, a Catholic hospital. And people think, oh gosh, stem cells in a Catholic hospital. How can this be? This is so controversial. But they weren't embryonic stem cells. Now, how many of you know what a stem cell is? There we go. Okay, did you know that there's at least 4 different kinds? And probably more. There's the embryonic stem cell, which is the controversial one. People are afraid that you're killing a baby when you harvest the stem cells from the embryo. There are cord blood stem cells. This is from the cord blood from the cord from the baby to the mother. Now recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they announced that they had found stem cells in the amniotic fluid. And then there's the most important one, and that's the adult stem cell. And the adult stem cells are in our bodies. Every one of us have them. Now, at first they found them in the bone marrow. And it turns out they've been treating leukemia and other diseases of that nature with stem cells for years, but they called it bone marrow transplants. And what they were doing, they were taking tissue from the bone marrow, and they were using that, they were re-injecting that and using that to cure leukemia. The fact is that what they were doing was harvesting the stem cells that were in the bone marrow. They separated out the stem cells, and then they let them multiply. Stem cells are so unique. They have 2 features that make them different than any other kind of cell in the body. One of which is they can become almost any other kind of cell. They can become a brain cell, they can become a lung cell, they can become a muscle cell, they can become a neural cell in your spine. The other feature about them is that they can multiply themselves. There's a limited number of people who can get into phase 1 studies simply because there aren't that many openings. But a whole lot of people can get into phase 2 and even more into phase 3. Now, overall you're talking maybe 5 years to get through all the phases before it becomes something that's put into practice everywhere. Which is very much a shame. Now, I hope that in the case of using the stem cells for the heart, that the FDA will step in and say, look, this works. It works real good. Why don't we give it to people who need it? And because it's not killed anybody, it's not harmed anybody. Let's let everybody have that advantage. And that has happened with clinical trials of other procedures and other medications. And it's probably one of the best kept secrets in medicine in the United States that clinical trials are going on using adult stem cells for almost every disease that you can think of. You name it, leukemia, Parkinson's, macular degeneration in the eyes, sickle cell anemia. I could go on and on. You can name a disease, and there's a stem cell study going on somewhere in the United States right now. How many times have you read about this in the newspaper or seen it on television? Well, the only time I've seen it is when the Sentinel did a story on me 3 weeks ago. That's the only time I've seen it. I'm outraged. I'm truly outraged. Here is something that can help so many people. And they're keeping it under a blanket. Why isn't the media putting that news out?